that's free for the VMAX. I didn't realize the Unisphere was a charged item for EMC to VNX. I didn't realize that, and I think you need that. So I'll have to go back and actually take note of that. So let me take note of that.
Why do you have vCenter open on your taskbar if you've got Cisco UCS open?
So you can watch the progress happen in the Virtual Center.
No, I don't have UCS open. I actually almost never go into UCS. And the reason is because from UCS Director, my integrations into UCS are so deep that I never have to go in. I mean, everything is here. I mean, I'm sure there's a few things that aren't, but they're not things that I ever do. So for example, all my service profiles are here. So I've got all my service profiles. I can, do all sorts of stuff to the service profiles. I can add a new service profile if I want to go through that process. So I can create service profiles. I can go through the process of assigning them and all that. If I go to my organizations, I can go to my organizations. I'll just pull up the root org here for lack of any creativity. I'm not the most creative person in the world when it comes to demos. I just kind of show what the product can do. But here, I've got all my things. I've got my Mac pools. I can create my Mac pools, my WWN pools. So I don't need to go into UCS Manager. UCS Manager is still required because UCS Director talks to it, but I almost never go into UCS Manager anymore. So anyway, that's
Mike, just
my deal there.
And my question.
Just to make sure we have enough time for people to really see the magic, I want to make sure we can walk through a couple of workflows so people can see how it automates and how the workflows work.
Yep. I was actually thinking about hitting there myself. I was looking at the clock going, that's the logical place to go. So far what we've talked about is we've really talked about one-off management of the devices. So, I don't know, taking a snapshot or creating a LUN or, creating a VLAN or doing these one-off items, which an administrator might do one-off. But one of the ideal things, of course, is around the automation, the ability to take several operations, to string them together and to create an automated structure so that you're not just doing one thing at a time, but you can actually execute a whole list of operations all at once. Let me pull up this create VLANs workflow here. So this is a workflow that I built. I was just playing around with UCS Director trying to build things. So this is a create VLAN workflow. And so what I've got is my first task is generating a VLAN from a pool. I basically created a pool of VLANs within UCS Director, and I tell UCS Director to use one of those. So it means that the user doesn't even have to enter the VLAN. From there, I create the VLAN on my two 5Ks, my two 1Ks, some other device, I don't remember what that is. I add my VLAN to the UCS, and I end with sending an email. So I put the VLAN effectively on 6 different devices, across the board. The nice thing is, because it's, this is an automated operation, it will do the same thing each and every time. And I don't have to pull up the command line, the CLI for those 6 devices and put the VLAN in those 6 devices. It's just going to be done across the board. If I have a new device that gets added, let's say I've got another 5K, let's actually, go through the process. So I've got a new 5K that got added in. So what I'm going to do is I just typed the word VLAN up here, and it filtered these 1,000 tasks just with the ones that have VLAN. So I'll go to my physical network tasks, my Cisco network tasks, and this create VLAN task right here. So I'll just pull this guy, I'll drag it in here, and now I got to go through the process of creating this VLAN. So I'm going to create a VLAN. So my first page is just kind of giving me some general information. I'll go to the next page. So the select device, I'll do that. So the VLAN ID, this will be carried over. So this, I'm actually going to pull the one that's generating the VLAN from the pool. So here it says generate VLAN from pool. So this output VLAN ID from there, I'm going to use that. For the VLAN name, again, I'll just have it carry through. So in this case, I will choose the 5K, the 5K name, VLAN name. There we go. VLAN name from the 5K. So again, the name is carrying through. So the VLAN ID and the VLAN name are carrying through, which means I don't have to worry about entering anything in. On my next page, I'll tell it which device I want to point to. So I'll just choose one. I'll randomly choose one. No idea if this is a good idea or not, but I won't run this workflow just in case. And then I'm done. I've done all that. I can go next if I've got any specific outputs, which I will ignore for the time being. And there we go. I've now created that task. And you remember that Ed was talking about this is a model-based orchestration engine, not scripting? Well, this is an example of that. So this create VLAN, you'll notice it was all quick, fill in the blanks, drop-down boxes, no scripting language knowledge required. Last thing I need to do is actually link it in the workflow, so let me put it right after this VLAN 2. So I just linked it in right there, and there we go. I'm done. I can close the workflow. And I did it. I just edited the workflow. So it's very, very easy to add things to a workflow, to edit a workflow. If I want to go in, let's say I want to make a change. Let's take this send email task. So I'll do that one because it's a very different task. So if I want to make a change, here I've got the same task. In this case, I've got an email address input, which is perfect. And then I might want to change the email address. There we go. There. So I just changed my task, and I'm done. So it's very, very easy to add things to a workflow, to modify a workflow, that kind of stuff. Let me actually pull up another workflow. I got a couple minutes, and I'm going to do a workflow that's a lot more complicated than what I just did. So this is kind of more of a big picture kind of workflow. So this here is, let me get rid of that task actually, because that does not make sense. There we go. Okay, so this workflow, the principle of this workflow is creating a new ESX host using SandBoot off a VMAX storage array. So that's what this workflow is trying to do. There's a lot of different components to go into that. So if you've ever had to do something like that, there's actually a lot of discrete steps. And we can actually start seeing the discrete steps. If I scroll down, you can see there's a fair number of discrete steps that are involved here. So if I actually go into compact view, just, so that I can, you can see even in the compact view, there's a fair number of steps involved into making this happen. So what are we actually doing? And I'll have to breeze over it. Obviously, I won't be able to go through in detail what each and every task is. But we start with a service profile. So we create a new service profile. We then have to select the blade. So we have to tell it which blade to use. We then associate the service profile created in that first step with the blade selected in the second step. So now what we've done is we've created our server entity. So now we actually have a server entity that we can work with. From there, I do my Pixie boot setup, and that's basically where I'm telling what operating system to install on there. So, in this case, it's ESX, but it could be a KVM, it could be a Windows, it could be whatever. So here I'm basically saying which operating system and giving some other information such as IP address and things like that. Now I get into the crux of some of the storage array. So in this case, we're dealing with VMAX. So I've got my FinDev and my storage groups. So I create it, I add devices to it, I create the initiator group and all that kind of stuff. So these are just things that a storage admin needs to do. So whenever a storage admin is creating, a new storage space for a SandBoot server, he'd have to go through this process. It is possible that some of these have been pre-done. So it is possible that we could provide user inputs instead. But we're kind of assuming that nothing is built. So we've done the server, we've done the storage, now we've actually got to do the SAN zoning. So now we've got a SAN zoning task. So we're going to do all the zoning on our MDS or other SAN storage, SAN network device. From there, now that we've done the SAN zoning and the storage and the compute and we've laid everything out, now we can actually go through the process of powering on the blade. So what we've done is we've taken this very, very manual process and automated each and every piece so that they will all work in sync together. And then we power on the blade, we actually give it some time to wait. Whoops, sorry, clicking wrong spot. modify the boot policy to boot from the correct VLAN, to boot from the SAM instead of booting from the Pixie. We then wait, we register the host with vCenter, and we send an email at the end saying we're all done. So it's kind of a big picture workflow to give you an idea of how far you could push UCS Director. So now we could take the provisioning of a single ESX host, and instead of have that take possibly days between each person who's got to touch it and the handoffs that have to happen between storage and network and compute and all the handoffs, we've automated that into a process that from, soup to nuts could take half an hour, depending on how long it takes for infrastructure to provision, but everything fully automated. And all of this is done with user inputs. So if I hit execute now, you can see, I simply have to provide these little pieces of data, and once I provide those pieces of data, I can hit submit, and it will actually go through the process and create that server with the storage and everything.
And so, just jumping in on your demo a little bit, so this is kind of showing like automating administrative tasks, for adding server resources to an ESX cluster, but there's kind of an end user facing version of it too, like in MCC's case, if you had a class that needed some VMs or some physical servers set up and you wanted to empower the professor or lecturer with the ability to generate their environment, have it exist for a semester and then go away at the end of it, like you can create workflows for that kind of thing. So it's more than just the back office
that would
stuff.
have been the self-service portal that we didn't address on this, but what Mike was talking about earlier, that he could do both views.
Yep.
But that's where it would, so you would, the admin side would set that up, and then you'd make that available to whatever users wanted to go in based on their security roles and get provisioning rights to those certain choices.
And there's approval stuff you can do and other things like that in the mix too.
That's correct.
Or Fred, if you wanted to automate setting up a new environment for a new customer and it was kind of well baked, that's something you could do. And
Most of ours are half baked.
Well, I wasn't going to
stand up a half-baked environment.
We can do that too. We don't need a tool to do half baked.
Is there a report or something that would show, because so somebody end to end has to make sure that part A, B, C, D, and A are clean. Is there like a report that would show end to end?
That's a good question.
Like
a report of all the steps.
So you see what IP addresses are being managed and what VLANs you're touching.
So like a report of a provisioning operation, I ran the automation and here's what it did for.
Actually beforehand, Jen. I think before somebody punches that button, so you avoid.
Kind of like a summary. Are you sure you want to do this? These are the VLANs. This is what you're going to affect.
How about, or maybe like a dry run functionality?
Or a dry run, right? A dry run with an audit.
Mike, you hearing all that?
Yeah, I am. I mean, fundamentally, especially when you're dealing with a workflow of this level of complexity, we often have to break it down, do several pieces, troubleshoot it. People often kind of breeze through steps and without necessarily knowing that they're breezing through it. So sometimes when we have to make it discrete, it definitely takes some effort to really outline the process in a very specific, rigorous way. We don't have the ability to do a dry run per se, but any workflow that we run, I can always do a rollback. So that's what I often end up doing whenever I'm doing a workflow, is I'll run it, I'll see where it fails, or if it fails, I'll view the outputs, I'll view the logs, and I'll do a rollback. So I use that functionality extensively, the rollback functionality, when I'm developing, creating a new workflow. Because it's all fun and dandy to say it's drag and drop boxes, but the drag and drop boxes only remove the coding problem. You still have the logic issue. You have to understand the logic of what you need to do on the underlying infrastructure. So that's where rollback is so useful when you're building out your workflow. So long answer to say we don't have a dry run feature. Instead, we've got the ability to execute it and roll it back.
So you're still getting input from all the different stack layer teams, but then you can reuse them after you get that done the first time.
Right.
Yeah.
Once it's done once,
now we can go in other directions too. We were talking about approvals, but another thing we've got, which we call custom approval, quote unquote, But what it is, it would allow maybe, for example, let's say you didn't want the VLAN to be assigned by the workflow, you actually wanted the VLAN to be assigned by the networking team. Well, you could actually have a custom approval step in there where the networking team goes in, puts the VLAN ID in the workflow, hits approve, and then the workflow continues with the VLAN ID provided by the network team. So, you know, you could do that as well. I mean, we can make things ultra complex. I mean, I'm just giving you a taste
That's
of
easy.
what we can do. You know, so this product can be pushed along a long way. I mean, I've been using this exclusively for a year. I've done nothing else for the last year, and I swear every week or two I'm learning something. Oh, I didn't know we could do that. So there's a lot of depth to it. Even though it's really quite easy to use, there's a lot of depth.
Kind of comparing it to some other products I've seen in this space, you know, like some of them are huge and gigantic, and it's a you know, a 3-year-long effort to implement them, and by the time you've implemented them, you don't actually get any of the value from the automation at the end. One of the things I like here is the fact that it's, you know, an appliance-based solution. The initial install is spin up the VM. There are pre-baked workflows ready to go, so you're not starting from scratch with nothing. I mean, I remember discussions at our former employer 4 years ago on automation, and I think they've succeeded in implementing none of it because it was so giant and complicated, in contrast to this, which I think is contained and relatively straightforward.
No, I mean, if you use a full automation suite, you know, you use something like BMC or something like that, yes, there's a lot of power to those suites.
For example.
As you're saying, it could be years before you actually start seeing value.
Right.
Whereas this, I can show you value in a week.
Yep.
Yeah, there's additional value coming down on the roadmap too that will be out soon.
Hey, Michael. Let's say there's an infrastructure component that's not directly supported yet. Is that something that the advanced services from Cisco can help folks, maybe not develop an entire module for it, but at least like the basic steps to get their workflows functional?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
I mean, so it could be fully developed if you wanted to, or what you could do is, and we often end up, you know, going down this, is more the custom workflow tasks, you know, where we'll actually create a custom workflow task.
Okay.
It's obviously now we are talking about some coding, so we are talking about doing some JavaScripting.
Yep.
So, you know, it's not like you can always get away without any coding ever. But yes, advanced services can do that.
Okay.
Sometimes even our customers do it. They just go in, they figure it out, and they start doing it themselves.
So I'm thinking like the case where a lot of our customers actually have 3PAR, right? So I didn't hear that particularly mentioned.
That's on
but
the roadmap.
But maybe there's like one or
15.
two things that, you know, it does have the RESTful API, and it's a real quick win to set up a script or two to do something quick. So okay.
Yeah.
The extensibility.
And a lot of it depends on what you want to do. You know, it's for example, let's take 3PAR. You know, and let's go through the concept that you actually want to do, you know, a new physical server with new storage. You know, that's again where your you know, your complex approval task could come in, because maybe the email could go to the 3PAR admin. The 3PAR admin does the 2, 3, 4 steps he needs to do to get the storage in play. You know, he copies over the WWNs or whatever, he pastes them back in the workflow dialog box that's prompted him. He says, submit, and then the workflow keeps going without 3PAR even being integrated anywhere.
Yeah,
so you end up with kind of this quote-unquote manual step.
I was thinking like real simple,
task and that kind of stuff.
But like a virtual copy of the like one or something, like a snapshot on the array, real simple things.
Yeah.
That people could self-serve.
No, and there's more than one way to run this.
Cool.
So, one of the other things that I like to mention is not only is it easy to deploy, and that's a huge advantage, the ability to deploy and get it up and running and see value in a week, but, you know, let's say a newer release comes out. You know, right now we're at 5.0. You know, 6.0 will be out in about 6 months. That's our release cycle for major releases, about every 6 months. So let's say 6.0 comes out and you've got 3, 4 key features that you want in there. All you have to do is download the patch, apply the patch, and then restart your services. You're talking literally an operation that could be as short as 15 minutes to get yourself up to the latest release, because you're not dealing with a complex suite of software that you've got to update each and every component, make sure that you check the compatibility matrix for all 8 entities to make sure they're all compliant with each other, and have a 6-month project to upgrade it. So it's super easy to upgrade, and as soon as you've upgraded it, you take advantage of all the new features. And, you know, you might have the 5 that you really wanted, but, oh, this is there, oh, that's there, oh, you know, they've added this, they've added that, you know, new capabilities. So it's phenomenally easy not just to deploy, but it's also easy to upgrade, which is a huge value add. You know, I mean, if you're going to pay for support for the software, you might as well use the newest release, because that's what you're paying for. So, make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Hey, Mike, can you mention about the community site where we can share workflows?
Sure. Let me pull up my pull up my community site. I bookmarked it just to make it easier. Go to communities.cisco.com and then go start searching for workflows. But here's kind of the right in there, and here's just some workflows that have been done, developed by certain people at different points. For example, here's one for an HP MAC address retrieval. So, you know, somebody wanted to be able to retrieve MAC addresses from an HP system. So that this is actually built by a customer, and, you know, they're like, hey, this is great. So they gave it to us, and we posted it on our community site. Now everybody has access. You know, here's one for a SQL Server silent install. So one of the things we can do when we provision a VM is we can also run, you know, additional workflows after the VM is provisioned. So this additional workflow would run a SQL Server silent install using PowerShell. So, you know, we'd have the PowerShell agent, and there you're off and running. So there's a whole bunch of stuff on, you know, different things, creating a VDC and a VBlock. And there's several pages worth of workflows. Here it shows 2, but I know there's at least 3 or 4. Just a whole variety of workflows. In some cases, it's custom tasks that people built, and people are just sharing this and providing, you know, that information so that others can use it.
That's a good forum.
So, and by the way, I'm logged in as guest, eh? I mean, I'm not logged in as a Cisco user or anything like that. I'm logged in as guest. So it's free for all kind of stuff. Obviously, I have to log in to post something, but, you know, that's... Well, I'm hoping you guys kind of got a feel for the product. It's hard to do much more than give a basic feel in a half an hour, 45 minutes. But I mean, the real takeaways are easy to use, easy to install, easy to deploy, very quick to value. And you know, very, very powerful, flexible, you know, both hardware layer and software layer, you know, infrastructure manager.
Yeah, I would add open landscape and a lot more coming down the roadmap, and that's a key value for customers that are running, you know, HP, EMC, Hitachi. It gives you the freedom of choice. I love that. Thanks, Mike.
Yep. You're welcome, guys.
Anything else before we set them free?
So just an offer from Kelser, we have access to a demo environment, so we'd be happy to work with you guys on a drill down demo of any of the stuff you saw today or things you didn't see. You know, we can talk to you about business cases and use cases in your environments. If you have ideas on where there could be value, we can bounce some of that around and you know, see if we can put something together for you. And if you come up with questions, just send them our way afterwards.
Excellent. All right, Mike, well, thank you. We'll let you get going.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Bye.
It's kind of neat. I mean, it's still you know, a big product. It has a lot of capabilities, but hopefully you got a flavor for you know, what some of the key parts of the equation are. And you know, like I said before, the fact that you could actually take it out of the box and you know, with our help, have it working pretty quickly, I think is a big part of the value.
So for you guys specifically, do you guys have initiatives around automating infrastructure? Are there provisioning challenges, and sometimes people say, yeah, it takes us 3 weeks or 2 weeks, and yeah, anybody can provision a VM in 5 minutes. It's all these other processes and policies that take all the time. Is that anything that's on the radar with you guys, or?
A lot of times things don't change very quickly, obviously in the education environment, so it's kind of like things come in waves.
Mhm.
But the, down the road, it actually could be useful for actually larger changes that might be happening, so.
Okay. Yeah, I just did a big deal with Johns Hopkins University just recently. They just did an enterprise license agreement with us. And now they're going to be trying to tie it into ServiceNow as well as phase 2. So yeah, it was pretty good. How about you, Fred?
I don't think our complexity warrants some, or our speed of change. When we do get changes, they're, as John mentioned briefly, they're very often client-specific.
Not generalized necessarily.
Yeah, so one client may need this and one may need that. I could see each time we were to provision something, we would be building that script from scratch.
Yeah.
And whereas I can see the value of running it time and time again, I think building it from scratch with the continual rollback to get step 1 to restart again, I don't know that we're that complex. I see the value to it, but
Sure.
I just don't know that our complexities are something we'd be heading there soon.
I don't know your business, but based on what you said, is multi-tenancy an issue for you guys, or something you'd like to have?
Something we'd like to have, but our third-party vendor licensing kills all the time. We're a letter shop. We do, so our common process, we do for all our clients. And at one point, when we first became virtualized, we moved off a mainframe about 7 years ago. When we first became virtualized, our vision was spin up a VM per client, because that's the best security model too. Doesn't blend data, minimizes error, but the software licensing was a killer.
Yeah.
So basically, we've got one server that does all our data processing, and then ancillary tasks. And so the ancillary tasks that make us change, but they're very specific. I'm going to say our VM complex that Matt helped us migrate to a stack of HPs in a 3-part this year. Once we got those VMs baked, very little changed from the core services and functionality.
That's true, actually, right? We haven't really been back.
Yeah.
Not for that.
Yes,
Our business is a different thing. And if Stan were here, he'd tell today how right after we're done with our current engagement, he's going to get us involved in VDI. We badly need that.
Okay.
But that's a whole different type of management for the infrastructure.
Yep.
Can this manage the new like baby UCSs too?
UCS
all-in-one?
Express
Yeah.
and all that stuff, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
'Cause that might apply
It's
in
just coming out.
Fred's
Yeah,
scenario.
there's 2 things, UCS Mini,
Yeah.
UCS
UCS Mini,
Express, those
yeah.
are 2 different things, but
Yeah.
yes.
I think mini he means.
Yeah, I think he means Mini.
So where you put the fabric interconnects in
Yes.
the chassis?
Yeah, that's
Is that
yeah,
Mini?
Yes.
UCS
I call it
Express is
baby, I
gonna
don't
be, UCS Express is gonna be for the big data. We're gonna be able to do things like Hadoop and some of those, connecting with UCS Director as well.
Oh, okay, I see.
But the mini is what we're
Yeah,
talking about.
and there's more.
Yeah, so, I mean, at least you have some understanding of what it does and,
Yep.
maybe down the road, but it allows you to start standardizing on your builds, being able to automate all those processes, quickly report on them for audit and compliance. And then, just figure out how you grow your business, and how do you become more efficient. And, most of the data center executives we're talking to, they're basically looking at their business as, we need to transform our business so we're considered a service provider for our internal customers.
Right.
So they're taking an SP approach by trying to really automate and make things so much more efficient. And solutions like these are great to help you get that framework for that. All right, well, that's all I have then. I appreciate the time.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you very much.
coming.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
Jim, thank you for
Oh, hey.
helping to make arrangements, and thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,